The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
These guys aren't playing around. It's time to put the books away and get in the room. It's time for Wrestling Recess. Now your hosts, Dysen Gould and Dom Deputy. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of PA Power Wrestling's Wrestling Recess. I'm your host, Dysen Gould, and today I'm joined by Mifflin County native and NC State freshman Trent Hidlay. Did I say it right?
Yeah, Hidlay, yeah.
Thanks for coming on with me today, Trent. I'm excited to get talking with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Yep. So the first thing to talk about is obviously, what are your thoughts about the cancellation of NCAAs?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a devastating time, and I know it's been a week or two, but it still hurts. It still stings. I think everybody across the country is feeling it. But right now we're focused on moving on and getting ready for the next thing. I think our coaches and our administration staff at NC State have done a great job of helping us through this time, and they understand how hard it is for us. So we definitely have a great support system, and right now we're just trying to stay safe, stay healthy, and listen to what the professionals are telling us, and just trying to get ready for the next thing, and take a little bit of time off and recover a little bit.
So after ACCs took place that Sunday, and then did you, after getting back home after ACCs, did you kind of think anything about maybe NCAAs are going to cancel or anything like that? Well,
I think the first thing that happened when they said that no fans would be able to go, I think that was kind of very alarming, I think, for us. I think when we saw that and we started seeing some of the basketball conference tournaments get canceled, I think that's when we knew we might be in trouble. And that's the crazy thing. I mean, we had the ACC tournament 3 days earlier, which, everything was fine. There wasn't really any, crazy, worrying about it. Nobody was really talking about it. And then, within those 3 days, things got really serious. And when they made the announcement that no fans would be able to attend, at that point, we still thought we'd be wrestling. We had practice the next morning. We were still going about our business the same, getting ready to, go to the NCAA tournament. And then that day, some of the ACC, the Big Ten, some of the big time basketball conference tournaments started getting canceled. And at that point, I think I kind of knew. And then they told us later that day. So, yeah, I think the big thing, I think, was the basketball tournaments. I think once that was in, I was like, oh, we're in trouble.
So how did you find out? Were you in the middle of practice, or was it kind of like a meeting or text?
So on Thursday, we as a team, it was kind of we had a practice in the morning, and then later that day we came back and we were just going to play some games together. We went outside and played some kickball, just hanging out because it was really nice out. And I think the coaches found out, and Pat got a phone call, and we finished up and we went inside, and they told us to meet we have an auditorium in our facility, and at that point we all knew, and Pat broke the news to us. Our athletic director, Boo Corrigan, talked to us a little bit, and it was very emotional. I think there wasn't a guy in the room that wasn't crying, which is something that's pretty rare at a wrestling team. I think a lot of times people think of us as very, very tough and very, very solid emotionally, but it was a very vulnerable time for everybody in the room, and everybody was crying. I don't know if I've cried ever harder in my life. But the message from Pat was that there's going to be a life lesson that we learned through all this. And luckily we don't have any seniors on the team. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with the eligibility. I don't think they're going to give us another year. I really hope they do. But the silver lining in it is that all of us on the team are coming back. We all have another opportunity to achieve our goals. It might be next year, it might be in 2 years, but Pat's message to us was that there's going to be a lesson learned in it, and right now we got to try to reflect on the great season that we had. Probably one of the best seasons in NC State history as a dual team, and that's something that we had to reflect on and be proud of. So that's what we're doing right now, and like I said, we we're all lucky enough that we have the opportunity to achieve our goals, and it might be next year and it might be in a few years, but we still have that hope, and we're still training for that.
So moving on to maybe talking about your youth wrestling, how did you and your brother get started into the sport?
Yeah, so I started when I was 5 years old. Hayden started when he started 2 years earlier than me. He's 2 years older than me. So he actually started some of his buddies that he went to school with in elementary school wrestled, and they were a little older. And he used to play games with him in recess and stuff, and all throughout school. But they told him that he should come out, and my dad was actually a basketball player when he was older, and my oldest brother Heath, who's a few years older than Hayden, played basketball too. So wrestling was never in our family. It wasn't something we knew, initially growing up, but Hayden got started because some of his buddies convinced him to, and he was really good at it right away. He was a pretty good natural wrestler, and then I think 2 years later, when I was 5, I started in kindergarten, and we kind of took off from there. But it's funny how we didn't have any wrestling connection. We didn't have any family members that ever wrestled, but once Hayden started and I got into it, my dad was hooked, and we went on from there.
Did you love the sport right away?
Yeah, I think I always liked the sport. I certainly wasn't that great. I think when I started, I was more of just kind of a bullheaded kid, and just kind of gave me a reason to kind of fight kids, I think. It certainly wasn't very technical, but I was very competitive as a young kid, and maybe some anger issues. It was probably a good sport for me. But I think starting out, I wasn't really the greatest, but I was always pretty good. And then I think once I got, I started, we did a lot of training. We were fortunate we went to Churchos a lot when we were really young. It was about a 25-minute drive from our house. And then once we started to get about 6th grade or 5th or 6th grade, we went with Bucknell legend, with Ian Assail, who's actually now one of our guys out here at NC State. So that's cool. But we went to Legend, and we really trained hard there, and I kind of fell in love with it at that point. I think in about middle of my 8th grade years when I started to take things really seriously, and it kind of became a passion of mine at that point. But I always liked the sport. There was a few times in my career where I didn't want to wrestle anymore. I wanted to do something different because it wasn't something I loved. But I saw how much success my brother was having, and it wasn't really the same for me. So there was definitely times where I didn't want to do it anymore, but I'm definitely glad I stuck with it, and he was a big part of helping me stick with it until I really found my way and started having a passion for it.
So you mentioned you weren't the greatest right away, but you were pretty good. When did you start really having success and realizing that you could excel in the sport? Yeah,
I mean, I think I was always a pretty decent youth wrestler. I placed at the PJW tournament each year I went, which was always a big deal for me because I know that tournament's really hard. I never won a PJW state title. I got second twice, and then I placed a few other times. But so I was always a good wrestler. I don't want to say that I was terrible, but I think getting ready for high school is a big transition for youth wrestlers, and I think it was very important for me to have a good high school program that worked really hard, and I was lucky enough to have a great few coaches that they really pushed us hard, and they knew that to be good we were going to have to work hard. And I had Hayden as a partner, and we had other guys, Noah Stewart, who's at Army, Trey Hartsock, Lockhaven, and we had a few other guys that were state qualified as state placers. It was a really good team we had, and I knew coming into that I was going to mature a lot coming in as a freshman and starting, and I was going to pull my own weight, and I knew the team needed me. So I think going in the freshman year was pretty hard, and I had to cut a lot of weight for it, which wasn't great at the time. But I think after my freshman year, I started to really gain some strides, and I started to pick up some wins at some national tournaments. And then I think starting in my sophomore year, I started to turn it on a little bit, started to kind of figure out the style of wrestling I liked, what worked for me. And sophomore year was still a little bit of a struggle, but I got my ass beat by Hayden a lot, and it was his senior year. But I think a lot of those learning lessons really propelled me the summer of my sophomore year into my junior year. And then I started to, really do well at the high school scene and start making some noise on the national level.
So you talked about going from youth wrestling to high school wrestling being like a big transition. I'm in 8th grade and I'm going to be a freshman next year. What's some advice maybe you could give me to like going into high school next year?
Well, I think one piece of advice that really, hurt me was there's no reason to cut a whole lot of weight. I was kind of in a hard position. I was probably weighing around 160-ish, and my brother was going to be 45, and we had a senior who was going to be 52. So it kind of fell on me. I went all the way down to 138, and struggled a little bit. It was very hard, especially you're that young. You don't know how to cut weight. It's a new thing to you, and so that'd be one piece of advice is not cut too much weight. But I think the other thing is just figure out what works. It's different when you start wrestling guys that are seniors and they're 4 years older than you. But I think if you figure out a few things that really work, you're going to get out to the match and realize it's not that different. So I do think 8th grade and 9th grade is pretty hard, especially in PA, because there's so much good competition, and you might see a senior guy that's top in the state, and you got to figure out a way to beat him. But I think having fun with it and staying positive is a big thing. Not getting discouraged as a young guy, and knowing that you're going to have lots of chances to prove yourself. So have fun with it and be ready to knock off the top guys.
I won't have to worry about the cutting weight part. I'm trying to get up to 106 right now.
Yeah, I know. We're in a little bit different situation, but that's good for you. You won't have as many older guys, so you'll have a good transition, I'm sure.
So you mentioned working out with Hayden and him being your partner. What was it like growing up with a brother a couple years older than you that you could work with?
Yeah, it was great, and I think us working together really helped us out a lot. We always had someone that we could train with, and we knew that the other guy was going to push us every time. So you had to bring your A game each time. And I definitely learned a lot from him, and I'm sure he's learned a lot from me just through, training and getting workouts in, and live wrestling. Live wrestling was always interesting, to say the least. We don't wrestle anymore. I'm probably just getting a fist fight every time. But I think going into high school, it was super critical for me to have that. Because there was days where there was my freshman, sophomore year. I don't think I took him down more than 10 times in those 2 years. So I was constantly getting beat on, but that made me a lot tougher. And I was seeing high level competition every day, and I was training with someone that was number one in the country. So, if I'm doing what he does, I knew I was going to be all right. So that was definitely big, having that, him as motivation and also guideline of what I need to do to be at the top. And I think growing up was awesome too. We went everywhere together. Our parents were very supportive of us, and they wanted us to get to as many tournaments as possible. So, we went around the country all over the state of PA to find the best competition. And, I think that really helped us bond together growing up. And when we got to high school, we became best friends through the process. And that was huge for me. And, we're still best friends till this day. So I think being able to have someone that you're close to and can train really hard with really brings you together in this sport.
In your freshman year of high school, you didn't place a state tournament. The next year you came back and got second. Talk about that jump you made and maybe what you did in the off season to improve.
Yeah, I think after freshman year for me, it was, I wouldn't say a wake up call, because I knew where I was at and I knew what I needed to do. But I think a lot of just maturing, getting stronger, putting on some size. I went all the way up to 160 next year. Getting some more freestyle and Greco experience definitely helped a lot. Just building my confidence and like I said, getting bigger, spending a lot of time in the weight room, getting stronger, more prepared for next season, going up a few weight classes and just keep training hard. It really didn't change anything up. Went to Legend a lot over the summer. Made a lot of sacrifices that the kids in high school aren't really willing to do. And I think that was really critical for my success going into sophomore year is I spent so much time after my freshman year, just, training hard, being diligent about what I'm doing and really having fun with just going all summer. Cause I think it's hard for guys to train really hard all summer and not get burned out. But, I I was so focused on, making an impact, at the state level and national level the next year that I didn't care how, what I had to do. So I just trained really hard, took everything serious, and, I started developing some offense that I could use. And, I think that's when, I really started to love the sport because I was around it all year long. I stopped playing football and baseball, and I was just wrestling all year round. And I think I learned a lot. And I think freestyle and Greco helped me a lot too, just being in the summer and changing things up. And then going into sophomore year, I was ready to compete.
So in your sophomore year, you lost to Caleb Young, who's actually from my hometown, in the finals. Yeah. What did that loss motivate you? Because then you became a 2-time state champ after that. Did that loss motivate you for?
Yeah, it definitely did. I would say that's probably one of the more defining moments in my career. Going into sophomore year, like I said, it's hard. It's hard wrestling guys that are older and more mature and stronger than you. But I had a pretty good season. I lost a few tough matches, but I think he was in my region too, so I knew I'd see him before the state tournament, and we had a good match at regions. I lost in overtime, but at that point I knew I was the second best guy in the state, and I knew if I got to the finals again, I would see him again and get a chance at him. I think that might have hurt me a little bit going into my state tournament. It was a pretty interesting tournament to say the least. The first round, I ended up going to tiebreakers with Mitch Hartman from Bell Vernon, and I couldn't get off bottom, and I was on the ride out, and he got his third caution with like 6 seconds left, and I ended up advancing. So that was scary. That was a weird moment, and then the next match, I got put to my back right away. I was down 4-0, I think, and I had to claw back, and then I won in the semis and overtime. So it was a rocky tournament, but it set up the rematch with Caleb Young, and I was confident going into the match. And I was nervous, but I was ready to go. And my brother wrestled before me, and he won his first state title as a senior, and that was awesome. And I followed him up, but and that loss, I think, was big for a few reasons. I think it, not only looking at the next year and setting my goal of being a state champion, but knowing that I could compete with the best guys in the country was, it was very motivating for me, because I knew to get to that next level that I was going to just have to keep doing more, keep working harder, keep exposing myself to the best guys, get ready for the summer and all the tournaments I'd see, Fargo. And it was hard, it was very emotional, and, it sucked losing, but I think, a few weeks later I started just getting ready for Flow Nationals and just moving on. And I knew leaving the Giant Center that night that I never wanted to lose there again. So that was really big for me going forward.
Talk about wrestling the Giant Center, what it's like with a big crowd, obviously PA State Tournament. What's it like to wrestle in the Giant Center? Yeah,
it's awesome. I wish I had more time to go back and do it again, because it's something that is, as a PA guy growing up, it's something that you go there watching the tournament, when you're younger and you see these guys win, and it's like these guys are superheroes to you. And then you get there and you're like, wow, this is awesome. And there's nothing better than the PA State Tournament. It's the best state of wrestling in the country. So if you can go there and win that tournament, then you're the real deal. And like I said, I wish I had one more year just to experience that atmosphere again. I think winning the state title for your high school is something that every kid strives to do when they're in the sport of wrestling. So I've definitely had some heartbreaking hard times in the Giant Center, but I've had my share of good times. And, I think I've probably cried in the Giant Center all 4 years of my high school career, some good, some bad, but it's a great place, and some crazy things happen at that tournament. So you got to be on your toes, but it's something I'll always remember.
It was really cool this year. I was able to get a media pass with PA Power Wrestling, and I got to go down kind of behind the scenes and stuff. So I kind of got a little sneak peek of what it's going to be like before I hopefully qualify there next year.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
It's really cool to be down walking through the tunnels and right Matt's side and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So talk about when you started to develop your power foot underhook. You used that a lot in college, and I even saw you using it some in high school. You used to kind of just fly in there with an underhook and dig it in.
Yeah, so I think, and it's kind of weird. I think the kind of technique I use is I'd say it's kind of unique to the way I wrestle. And I think the way I kind of developed it was kind of doing underhooks wrong for so long. My brother was really good with using an underhook to like a far knee blast and to a single leg and stuff. And in high school, and when I started training with him, I started to try to do it, and I would try to kind of come up from the open and just like kind of throw it in and didn't really do anything with it, just try to get to an over under. And then, at some point I just kind of developed the underhook to like a double leg from out of space. And it's, I always tell people it's a product of, bad technique over a long time until I figured out what worked for me. So I just kind of started messing around with it, and, it was something that I was very successful in high school. I could use it a lot. It also kind of ran me into some trouble though against high competition, because I would try to hit this one move over and over again, and if someone kind of figured it out or stopped it, I would kind of freeze up and not go to my other stuff. So that's something that I've improved on a lot. But yeah, it's definitely a pretty unique technique to me, and I try to show other people. I'm not very good at showing it because I just kind of developed it over a few years of bad underhook technique. But I love being an underhook, and that's kind of what I'm known for. So I've had some good success with it this season, but I think the big thing for me moving forward is developing some more of my offense and letting that open up a little bit more.
Talk about your experience wrestling at Who's Number One in the Snake Pit in Lehigh. Yeah,
that was awesome. That was something that I definitely will never forget. I had great memories for that experience. And I wasn't originally on the card. About a week before it started, Willie messaged me and asked me if I'd do it, and I obviously wanted to. And we got the match set up, and I was actually on a visit. I was on a visit at Lehigh when he asked me. I was on my official visit there, so that was kind of ironic. But I was really excited for it going in, and I wasn't really training like crazy hard for it because I didn't think I was going. So about a week's notice, I got ready and got my weight down a little bit, and it was really cool. They do the press conference, they get all the cool gear, and you stay at the hotel, and they feed you and stuff. So it's definitely a very fun and unforgettable experience. And then wrestling in the Snake Pit was really hot. I couldn't stop sweating. That's one thing I remember from it. But it was a really crazy match. I wrestled Julian Ramirez, and he threw a lot of things at me I hadn't really seen before. He's very flexible, and I kind of kept getting to his legs, and I couldn't finish, and we got in these crazy scrambles, and pretty uncharacteristic to me. I don't really like to get in a whole lot of scrambles. I like to keep things controlled, but it was fun. I had a lot of fun doing it, and we went to overtime, and I won. But sorry, I'm getting a call. But it was really fun. I had a lot of good experiences from that, and I had my coach there with me, which was cool. And, my brother and some of my family all get to go. So it's a really cool event, and I hope they keep doing it in the future. And I always like to tune in whenever they have it each year.
So you win the match in overtime, you get a hoagie tossed to you, eat it. Yeah. Talk about that. I got to ask, why the hoagie? When did that all start?
I guess that's kind of when Hoagie Hidlay, my nickname, came to be. And I guess before that, Hayden and I, we were doing this thing called Hoagie Club, where we were just, it wasn't really a club. You just eat hoagies on the weekends and watch football, I guess. But I figured if I won, I had to go out with a bang. And we had hoagies for lunch that day, and I saved one and I gave it to my buddy Jarrett Lane, who wrestles at Lehigh now. And I told him, I said, if I win, just throw this out to me. I'll take a bite. Didn't really think it would be that big of a hit. And then we go in overtime. I get the pin, I win, and I couldn't even remember. I didn't even remember that I asked him to do it. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just kind of going crazy. And then I see him just throw it at me, and I was like, all right, I might as well just go with it. And I took a bite, and the ref was trying to tell me to stop and take it away from me, but I was so out of breath. I tried to swallow it, but it was getting stuck in my mouth, and my nose was bleeding. So it was funny, but I'm glad people enjoyed it. And I guess from that day forward, I'm the hoagie boy.
So, I think if I remember correctly, you kind of just took a bite out of it and you handed it to the ref. And
Yeah, I took a bite out of it, and whenever I was doing it, he was like, "Stop! You don't need to do that." He's trying to take it away, and I took a bite from it. I was just like, "All right, just take it."
So, moving on to your college career, why did you choose NC State? Obviously, your brother was there, but maybe what are a couple of things that stood out to you about there?
Yeah, I think for me it was just the vision of the coaches. Pat Papalizio, Adam Hall. And Frank Beasley was there before, and now Donnie Vinson, and some of the RTC guys. I think the vision of what Pat had for the program was something I wanted to be a part of. I had a lot of trust in them that they would, turn me into a better wrestler, but a better person as well. And I think what separates our program from others is, the amount of discipline you have to be a part of it. We're a zero tolerance team, no drinking, no partying. And that, I think for me, I knew that if I did everything right at the college level, then I could have success. And ever since I've been on campus, the coaches have done so much for me, and they fight for you for every inch. And, it's very hard. Especially redshirting first year and not really knowing who you are as a wrestler yet. It's definitely hard, and especially going into college at 184 and 174, it's hard, wrestling guys that are 4 years older than you and pretty much like adult men. It's a tough transition, but I knew that going to NC State would be huge for me because I would learn valuable lessons and through discipline and consistency, I would find my way. And I think what helped me a little bit was seeing how Hayden progressed when he got there. I saw how much better he got when he went to college when I was still in high school, and I followed his season and how well he was doing. And for me, if he could do that and he was doing the right things, then I could do it. And my recruitment process was a little different. NC State was where he wanted to go when he was a sophomore, junior in high school, and he didn't take any other official visits. For me, I took all my official visits. I visited a lot of places. I loved a lot of different schools, and NC State wasn't always the place I thought I was going to go. I really had a good time seeing how different schools, had different programs and their different, ways they have success. And at the end of the day, I knew that one day I'd wake up and realize where I wanted to go, and it did. I woke up and I realized that NC State was where I wanted to be and where I saw myself in the future.
What are some other schools that you were interested in?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be upset with me, but Iowa was probably my second school. I loved Iowa. I thought it was a good fit for me. Lehigh was another school I liked. Purdue. I took some other visits. I mean, me and my dad, my parents did a good job. They wanted me to see as many schools as I was interested in. And I talked to a lot of coaches. I got to see a lot of different schools across the country. And, I took my visits to Iowa, Lehigh, NC State, and Purdue. And I liked all the schools. It wasn't something that, I liked NC State this much exponentially than the other ones. I thought the campuses were all nice. All the coaching staffs were awesome, but it just NC State felt like home for me. And at the end of the day, I knew that if I went to NC State, I'd be successful. And the coaches, I had a lot of trust in them, and I knew they'd take care of me. And, if something bad happened, I knew that, they'd be there for me. And my brother was there, and, my family could come down whenever, and it all just worked out well. NC State was a good fit for me.
Yeah, I never knew you were ever interested in Iowa. That's kind of.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was a time where I thought, I thought Iowa was where I was going to go. I went on my visits, and it's like you get there, and it's like, this place is awesome. Like,
yeah, I love
Iowa. It has so much history, and the team is obviously super good, and the facilities are crazy, and the whole place, it's like the mecca of wrestling. The people there they know who you are when you're walking around, and the coaches are awesome, and I did really like it there. It turned out that NC State was just a better fit for me, I think, at the time, and what I was looking for and what they were looking for was exactly the same, and we meshed really well together, and ever since I've been here, I've loved it. So yeah, Iowa was a great school. I think it's hard to go to Iowa and not love it there. I think everybody has appreciation of what they do in their program. So yeah, it's a great school.
How far of a drive is it down to Raleigh?
It takes us about 7.5 hours.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Without traffic, you can get there in around 7-ish. But with traffic, sometimes if you hit traffic in DC, it gets kind of ugly. It can be around 8. But me and my brother and actually our older brother lives with us too now. So we have all three of us are in the same house, so we can split up the driving duties equally. So it's not too bad.
Talk about NC State. You mentioned earlier you guys have no seniors graduating this year, and you guys were real tough this year winning the ACC tournament. Probably you're definitely in the hunt for a NCAA trophy, most likely, and just talk about your success this year and going forward.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that stung the most out of the whole, NCAA being canceled. I think we were in a spot where we really believed we were going to get an NCAA trophy. We we're always going to be a little bit underrated for where we're at and who we are, but we thought that we were going to make a good run at it, and I think we were in a good position to do that. Everybody was peaking at the right time, and we were just really confident going into the tournament. So that was one thing that hurt a lot about it. But yeah, I mean, we had one of the best seasons in NC State history. Kind of comparing that to 2016, where they ended up the number 2 team in the country and beat Iowa and Oklahoma State both at their home facilities. But I think this year was incredible. We faced a lot of good competition. We had a lot of tough dual meets, and every dual meet someone new stepped up. You look at the UNC duel, some things didn't go our way. We had a guy out, and our heavyweight came up with a huge win at the end to seal it. In the Virginia Tech duel, we had a few tough losses. I lost. And Jarrett Trombley at 133 getting a pin was huge. I think everyone just responded really well to adversity this year, and I think that it says a lot about the way we train. Is Coach Pat throws a lot of uncertainties, a lot of adversity at us, and he wants to see how we respond. And that's something I think we did a really good job of, and I think it gives us a great stepping scale to next year. I think we're all very hungry to get back and get together as a team and do what we do best, and that's win. We all got recruited there to be winners and bring trophies back for NC State, and that's something we all want to do. So I think next year is going to be really exciting. We'll have a good upper class of the class of Hayden and the Bullards and Tariq Wilson and Nick Green and all those guys will be seniors, and then my class will have a little bit of experience, and we're going to be coming back, and we got a really good freshman incoming class that some of those guys might go right away, and I think they're all hungry to do that. So I think we're going to be very dangerous next year, and like I said, it's a product of the way we train, and that's what we're going for.
You mentioned that NC State UNC match. I think if I remember correctly, you punched a chair and broke it after the match. Yeah.
I was. It was a very nerve-wracking experience. I want to say we were up by 2 going into the heavyweight match, so it was a winner-take-all situation, and I was just, I don't know. I think it says a lot about the kind of person I am. That I'm very passionate. I go all in for those things, and this really is my life. So I take it. It's just a big deal, and I'm pretty animated on the sidelines, especially when other guys are wrestling. Definitely when my brother's wrestling, it kills me to watch his matches. But yeah, I don't even remember. It was kind of a fog. I didn't even realize I did it until after I saw videos of it on Twitter. But Deontay got the match sealing takedown, and everyone just kind of lost their minds. We had the biggest crowd we've ever had, and the pep band was there. Everybody was going nuts. Everybody was screaming, and I kind of picked up Pat and turned around and just started letting it loose on that poor chair. But that was an incredible moment, and I think it says a lot about where North Carolina wrestling's at right now, and especially NC State. I think when Pat first started here, they'd be lucky to get 100 people to their matches, and now we got plus 4,000 people there losing their minds over a rivalry match with UNC, and UNC's done a great job too of building up their program and what they're doing, and it's just good for NCAA wrestling and ACC wrestling as a whole. I think it makes everybody elevate their game, and I think you see that this year with how good the ACC was.
Yeah, the ACC was pretty tough this year with teams like NC State, UNC. Pitt was pretty good. Virginia Tech was in the top 5 in the rankings. A couple other teams like ACC was real tough this year.
Yeah, and I think it's time that people respect the ACC a little bit. I think a lot of people, a lot of fans that don't really know wrestling think it's just Big Ten, but it's a lot more than that. And I think you see that this year is, other than Iowa, they were obviously the number 1 team, and they were probably. I think everybody knows they're a number 1 team, but we could compete against any other team in the country, I think. And that goes into a whole nother thing of the team dual tournament, which should happen. But and I think you look at the ACC, we had NC State, UNC, Virginia Tech, Pitt. They were all top 10 teams, and out of 6 teams, which is crazy. And even Virginia, they had a lot of good wins. They are a top 20 team, and I think the ACC is probably the second best conference. Considering the depth and obviously the Big 12 has the great teams too. But, I think it's time for people to, put a little respect on the ACC name and see what we're doing and hop on that train.
You mentioned being real nerve-wracking watching your brother, and it kills you to watch him. Talk about the relationship you guys have watching each other wrestle. Yeah,
I think I'm certainly a little bit more animated, but we'll both. He'll say the same thing. I think it's a lot more nervous watching the other guy wrestle than when you're out there. And I think it's just because how hard I know how hard he works, and I know what we do is right. And when he goes out there, you just want it to happen for him really bad. And I obviously have a lot of trust in him. I bet on him against anybody any day, but it's very nerve-wracking. I feel like that's probably what it's like for parents watching their own kids wrestle. That's kind of what I would compare it to. But like I said, I have all the trust in the world in him, but it's definitely nervous when I definitely get really, freaked out when he goes out there.
Talk about your freshman season. What was like the biggest thing you learned maybe first year in college as a starter?
I think the biggest thing I've learned, reflecting on the whole season is just to, open up and let it fly. I know I can, win some tight matches, and I know I can compete with every guy in the weight class. But the matches I lost this year were because I was too timid. I froze up a little bit, and I'd try to just keep punching my underhook, keep punching it. It wasn't working. Maybe I give up a takedown, and then it's like, okay, what do I do now? But I think that's a big thing for me going into next year is having the confidence and knowing that I have other attacks at work, and I know I do, and I got to use my conditioning more, and just trust in my offense and let it fly. I think it's hard to beat a guy that's throwing 100 different things at you at once and trying to score it every second. So that's who I want to be, and obviously keep using my underhook, but open things up a lot and just have fun with it and enjoy the moment that I'm in. I train too hard not to give myself a chance to win every match. So I think going into next year it's big for me. Just have the confidence of letting it fly and open up my offense and just score a bunch of points and do it for the team.
You mentioned a lot about Coach Pat Popolizio in this interview. What's maybe one thing that sticks out to you, or like you could describe him as?
Yeah, I think. Let's see, describing Pat. I think it is kind of funny when he recruits you. I think he might seem a little scary because he's one of the tallest guys and one of the tallest coaches in the NCAA, and he's always dressed in black. But he's one of my best friends, really. He knows what it takes to win, and that's what he wants. You know how passionate he is about the sport and how bad he wants to win. And when you have a leader like that, it really trickles down every guy on the team. He brings guys in that can win, and he believes in them. And it's just it's a lot of trust, a lot of loyalty between us and our coach. And like I said, he brought us there to win, so that's what we're going to do. And he's very, very funny. He's got a dry sense of humor, but he's been really important for me. I think having him there as a coach and leading me in the right steps and getting me the resources that I need to win, and whether that's maybe technique or maybe just talking to him and figuring some things out. But ever since I've been on campus, he's told me that I'm going to be a multiple-time national champion. So, I trust what he's saying, and, it just makes you really want to fight for him and, fight for the team. And, he's just a great coach.
Looking into your future, maybe a little bit after college, I know it's a long time away, but do you plan on maybe coaching or sticking around on the wrestling competition scene with maybe some senior level stuff?
I think that's a little bit uncertain for me right now. I think we'll see. Wrestling's obviously what I love. It's my passion. So anytime I can be around it, that's what I want to do. I definitely want to get into coaching when I'm done. And maybe if my body's not completely broken after 5 years of college wrestling, I'll get into the senior level. And I think freestyle is something I've had some success with. I think my style is really good with it. And I, getting a medal at the Junior World Championships this past summer was huge for me. And I think that kind of opens up some new paths and avenues for me, in the senior level, is that, I can compete and I can make world and, Olympic teams. So I think that's always the goal. But right now, I'm just focused on the goal at hand and winning a national title. But coaching is definitely something I'm interested in. I think that's, something I've wanted to do for a long time.
That's all I got for you today. Trent, thanks for coming on and spending a little bit of time with me. I'll give you the last word. Anything you got for me and the listeners?
I just say, appreciate what you do. I think what you guys are doing is awesome. I think a lot of people recognize it and really appreciate it. I just, and the other thing is I think PA wrestling is the best, and I love it. Hope people never forget that, because I know the younger guys are going to keep coming out and keep making a big name for themselves. So I really appreciate you having me on. I love talking to you today.
Yep, thanks for coming on.
All right, thank you.